Hi, this is the voice, Michael Chavello. You're listening to the Premium Oddscast, hosted by leading MMA odds maker Nick Kalikas, fight scientist and author of Fightnomics Reed Kuhn, and MMA journalist Brian Heminger. The absolute best UFC betting info, hits, statistics, and analysis from the most respected authority in mixed martial arts betting, MMAoddsbreaker.com.
Welcome to the Premium Oddscast presented by 5 Dimes Sportsbook and Countermove, your home for fantasy MMA. I'm Brian Heminger, joined today by leading mixed martial arts odds maker Nick Kalikas to break down this Saturday's UFC 190 event, which takes place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. If you're unfamiliar with our format, myself and Nick will be breaking down the fight card from top to bottom, providing extensive analysis and a pick for each fight after doing our film study for the event. Then, fight scientist Reed Kuhn will step in and offer his expansive numerical insight on all bouts with sufficient data. Today, Reed will be able to contribute on 6 total bouts. Briefly looking back at our last event, our premium package bets for the UFC on Fox 16 went 2-1 to profit 3.75 units overall. We won our underdog bet on Brian Caraway as well as our straight play on Edson Barboza, while we lost our underdog bet on Kenny Robertson. We also won our 1-unit free bet parlay on Joe Lozon with Zach Cummings. Back to the present. UFC 190 features a 13-fight card in total and will be aired on UFC Fight Pass, Fox Sports 1, and pay-per-view this Saturday night. Let's dive right in. Now, kicking off the preliminary card on Fight Pass is a bantamweight contest between Hugo Viana, who is 8-3, and Guido Canetti, who is 6-3. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
I opened Viana minus 505 to come back on Canetti plus 335. That's right. For those of you guys that are looking at the line right now, huge drop. It's Viana minus 300 to come back on Canetti plus 250 right at 5dimes.eu. Make sure you guys check those out. That's the official sportsbook of the Premium Oddscast, so give them some love. But yeah, a lot of movement coming in early on, a lot of action coming in early on. And Canetti as a dog. I did open the line a tad high, but at the same time, you know what? I disagree with the early action on the dog, honestly. I just think Canetti's okay. Obviously, he's a tough veteran. He had some success on the show, making it to the finale, of course. He's got some skill, but at the same time, I don't know. I think that he's 35 years old already. There's not much room for him to improve. He does have a little bit of power. His stand-up game can be effective at times. He's got a little bit of wrestling and jiu-jitsu, of course, to go along with it. So he is a complete MMA fighter. But the problem is it's one of those situations for me where Canetti's just not really great anywhere. His chin's a little bit suspect to me. I think that his cardio is a letdown as well. So he's just not a great fighter. I think he's going to be dangerous early on in round 1. So Viana's going to have to weather an early storm or just be a little bit more cautious. But as the fight progresses, I think he's going to start Viana's going to start finding his range. To me, Viana's a pretty good overall MMA fighter because he's really developed good takedown defense. He's able to usually sprawl and brawl against very solid competition and keep the fight upright, where he does excel. His stand-up game, he's got some really good hands. He's got knockout power to go along with it. Even though he hasn't had a lot of knockouts on his resume, he still is a dangerous threat on the feet for sure. I think it's a little bit his KO power is a little bit underrated because of that factor. But that being said, I mean, he can definitely outpoint Canetti on the feet. He could do more damage along the way. He's got speed advantage. And again, I think that Canetti's not going to be able to take this fight to the floor because Viana's takedown defense is so good. And I think if he does manage to get a quick takedown, Viana's just going to pop right back up and then use his footwork, his movement, and his boxing ability to actually just, outpoint Canetti and probably finish him along the way. So, I don't agree with the early action. As I said, I think Viana does win this fight and probably wins it by stoppage. So I am going to go the other way. I think this should be, if as long as Viana doesn't get caught with anything silly right away, I think it should be his fight to win or lose, and he should win it in pretty good fashion. So my pick is Viana.
Hugo Viana is a very interesting fighter in that his 3 wins are all over guys that aren't even in the UFC anymore, and he won impressively. And his 2 losses are to Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw, 2 of the absolute best bantamweights on the entire roster. So he has faced the absolute best and some of the worst in the division. So we're going to find out just how good he is, although Canetti, again, is a guy near the bottom tier of the bantamweight division. I'm actually surprised he was given another fight after losing in the Ultimate Fighter finale. So going in here against Viana, Canetti is actually a pretty well-rounded fighter. He's a good veteran of the sport out of Argentina. But, man, he really has a terrible chin, and he's getting up there in age. He's 35 years old, so he was winning his fight against Henry Briones in his UFC debut, and then he got clipped, and the fight was over. I mean, just clipped, and Briones pounced him. So against Vienna, he is going to have to be terrified of that overhand right. Now, Vienna wasn't always a striker. On The Ultimate Fighter, he was more of a grappler, submission type of guy. And then he just fell in love with that overhand right. He will spam it. He will throw it with reckless abandon. And he actually rocked TJ Dillashaw with it. So, I mean, he definitely has some power. And I expect him to go out there and really just try to take Canetti's head off. And at some point, he probably will. So Vienna should be able to use the other skills that he doesn't use anymore. At least he'll use them defensively to try to keep this fight at range and then just spam that overhand right until something connects. And I think at some point it will. And I expect Vienna to not only win, but win by vicious knockout at some point in this fight. Probably the first round, but maybe the second. So my pick is Hugo Vienna. Now moving up to the middleweight division, we have Vitor Miranda, who is 11-4, taking on Clint Hester, who is also 11-4. Now, Nick, what's the MMA odds maker's perspective on this one?
Open Hester minus 265, the comeback on Miranda plus 185. So looking at the line right now at 5 dimes, Hester minus 155, the comeback on Miranda plus 135. So again, dog action coming in early on Miranda. This time I don't kind of argue it. I think that Miranda on the feet, if he's able to keep this fight standing, is the more technical striker. He has the ability to finish fights, obviously. I mean, he did it in his last fight, even though he was losing that fight to Collier. And Hester has definitely shown some signs of bad defense on the feet. It's kind of a suspect chin as well. And at times some cardio issues. So I do understand why the early action came in on Miranda. I was surprised by it, though. I thought that, honestly, Hester's the more popular fighter. Hester, in his UFC career, really has overperformed, and he's getting better. I mean, his setback was his last fight to Whitaker when he got knocked out. But before that, he was looking good. I mean, he fought some outstanding grapplers. He's fought some decent, I'd say midline type of guys to kind of use as a stepping stone, and he really got through those guys progressively. So I think that Hester is improving fight by fight. He's becoming a more complete MMA fighter. He's got a lot of power on the feet. I think his wrestling is getting better, and that's what he's probably going to want to use and almost has to use against Miranda in this fight. Miranda is, again, a little bit more technical on the feet. I think he's got better fight IQ. He's got better accuracy, and he is definitely the bigger threat of a knockout. He also has a better chin as well, I think. So even though he's the older fighter, I believe he's going to be 37 at the time of the fight. So Hester's going to have the youth advantage in this spot, and again, he's going to have the wrestling advantage, and I think he's going to need to use it. So it's a tough one. I could see it play out either way if the fight does remain standing and Miranda's able to sprawl and brawl. But at the same time, I think Miranda is going to kind of have some problems with Hester's wrestling. I mean, in the Ultimate Fighter finale, in the final fight in the championship, he did get taken down. He did get controlled a little bit. Then his fight, his official UFC debut against Collier, the same thing happened to him early on. He did manage to win that fight, as I mentioned earlier, against Collier, but still, I think Hester is going to be a little bit of a different type of test for Miranda. And again, if his fight IQ is up to par, Hester should probably win this fight, and I think he wins it by decision. So I'm going to lean a little bit more towards Hester, but Miranda is really no joke, and he's going to be dangerous throughout. So not a strong, confident pick on Hester, but I am going to lean that way.
Yeah, this is a tricky fight. Both guys primarily are stand-up guys, Miranda especially, but Miranda hasn't looked great on the feet yet. I mean, he got completely out-wrestled in his UFC debut on the tough finale, and then in his last fight, he was losing it, and out of nowhere just completely destroyed Jake Collier with a really impressive shot. So, man, it's interesting for Miranda because he has the power, he has the ability, and he does have the technique, but he can get pressured on the feet, which is something that Clint Hester does pretty well, and he does not have a good ground game. So if Hester wants to use some of that wrestling he's been focusing on a little bit in his training, it would be a really smart idea to do that this time around against Miranda. Hester, he was a guy that people were talking about a little bit as a good prospect in the middleweight division. He was the first pick on his team in the Ultimate Fighter by John Jones, and he just hasn't quite lived up to it yet. He's had a couple wins that were okay. He had a controversial win against another fellow Brazilian, Neto, and his last fight kind of showed his ceiling against Robert Whitaker. He went in there, he was aggressive, tried to knock Whitaker's head off. He couldn't quite do it. He did hurt him a little bit, but then out of nowhere, Whitaker just smashed him. So, man, you have to be impressed with Whitaker's performance there. But, man, that's really scary about what happened to Hester. I mean, I thought his chin was better than that. I mean, I know Whitaker hits hard, but come on, man. And against a guy like Vitor Miranda, who has a ton of power, it's a bit scary if Hester comes in here and tries to just have a stand-up war against him, especially in Brazil. So, well, I don't think Vitor Miranda is that good of a fighter. I think that there's a chance that Clinton Hester comes out here, tries to box with Miranda, and while Hester does have good punching and elbows, Miranda is a bit more well-rounded. He can mix in some good kicks, and he could head kick Clint Hester here. And I think at some point in this fight, Miranda might actually do it. So I'm super slightly leaning towards the underdog here, Vitor Miranda, to pull off a pretty big upset. I wouldn't be surprised if Hester ends up winning, especially if he uses his wrestling. But I don't know. I just can't trust Clint Hester at this point, and I'm going to go with Miranda to pull off the hometown win. Now kicking off the prelims on Fox Sports 1, we have a bantamweight contest between Yuri Alcantara, who is 31-6 with 1 no contest, and Leandro Issa, who is 13-4. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
I open Alcantara minus 505 to come back on Issa plus 335. Some significant movement in action coming in on Issa. Right now it's minus 250 for Alcantara. The comeback on Issa is plus 210. So a little bit surprised with the action. Not as far as ability to win the fight, because I do agree with it in some ways. I'm just surprised that generally speaking, when I open Alcantara line, it usually goes the other way. I mean, if you look at the last fight with Frankie Sainz, Alcantara got bet up to about 10-1 or so, and he opened around the same spot. So it just seems to be a natural kind of instinct for people to want to bet Alcantara because he does have a really good skill set. I mean, the guy is big for 135. He's got a decent reach. He's a southpaw. He's got explosive technique and power on the feet. He's got submission skill to go along with it. He's got some decent offensive wrestling. I mean, the guy basically has a total package, and a lot of people were expecting him to be a legit title contender at this point, and he was really knocking on the door. That being said, he has had some letdowns along the way, and one of the biggest flaws with Alcantara is honestly his cardio. It does seem to let him down, and his takedown defense at times as well. Even though he does have some decent offensive wrestling, I mean, it seems like when he starts getting a little tired, he doesn't sprawl and brawl as well. He's not able to keep the fight upright against guys that are really set on getting the fight to the ground, and Issa is going to be one of those type of guys, honestly. Issa, again, the early action coming in, I think you guys, whoever took that line early on, those of you guys that are listening, if it's anyone that does listen to Premium Oddscast, congratulations. That was a pretty good take, I think, at plus 335. I don't think we're going to see that number. Even if there is some steam coming back on Alcantara, I don't think it's going to climb to what we usually see, so that was a good take there. And I do think Issa has a path to victory, and that is, again, his jiu-jitsu, his wrestling, being able to control the fight, especially if he can weather an early storm. Issa's a pretty well-rounded fighter. He comes from a good camp as well, Evolve MMA, probably an underrated camp. And Issa, obviously his main strengths are the ground game. I mean, he likes to take his opponents down, control them, look for the sub, and just kind of grind them out and win on points more than anything else. If the submission's there, he'll take it, of course. His stand-up game's okay, but I mean, that's not an area that he does excel at, like I said. So, in this fight, what's really going to come down to is if Issa can weather the early storm. If he can survive round 1, I do think he's going to be able to take over in round 2 and round 3 and probably steal a decision, possibly, I should say, not probably, or even maybe, get to Alcantara's back. Alcantara is not an easy guy to sub, but I mean, Issa is pretty sneaky with his submission game as well, so I wouldn't count it completely out. But that being said, as far as sub defense goes, that is a little bit of concern for Issa as well. I think that Alcantara, even off his back, is capable of submitting opponents. Issa has been caught by submission before as well, so even though he's gifted offensively, there's still a little bit of concern with Issa's sub defense. So if Issa doesn't get caught and this fight does hit the scorecards, which it doesn't seem like it's supposed to, obviously, if you look at the total, it's 1.5 rounds over minus 160. So chances are it doesn't end up in the scorecards. And if that's the case, I do think Alcantara is probably the likely winner because I think he can knock Issa out on the feet. Issa does have, I should mention, his sub defense, but he also does have a suspect chin as well. And Alcantara can definitely exploit that. If not, I think Alcantara, if the fight ends in sub, I think it's probably likely Alcantara maybe finishes Issa there as well. So Issa's best path to victory is, I think, on the scorecards, is smothering Alcantara and winning round 2 and round 3. I think it's possible, but I am going to go the other way. I am going to pick the favorite here in Alcantara because I do think that his chances of finishing and then possibly also stealing 2 out of 3 rounds is a little bit better, and I think it is probably going to go that way. So Slight lean towards Alcantara, but it is a dog or pass situation, no doubt about it. At the current odds, even being that low, it's hard to bet Alcantara and hard to trust him these days, especially with a guy that you know is going to look to take him down. So my official pick is going to be Alcantara.
One of the more important things to look at with this fight is what direction are these guys going in their careers? Alcantara at one point was almost a contender. I mean, if he had beat Uriah Faber in their fight, he could have been in line for a title shot, but obviously things did not pan out very well for him. And Issa, on the other hand, started very poorly, losing his UFC debut against Russell Doan, and then had a tough fight against Turshin. But then in his last fight, he looked incredible against Oka Sasaki. I mean, absolutely amazing. He was a new man. Now, obviously, Sasaki hasn't quite panned out as the prospect people were hyping him up for out of Japan. But, man, Issa seriously looked like a world beater in that fight. And if he can bring that same gusto here against Alcantara, he could be in good shape. The main thing for Alcantara always is conditioning. This guy's conditioning is terrible. He has the worst conditioning in the bantamweight division by a landslide. He either finishes people really quickly or he has a lot of trouble. And against Issa here, I think if Alcantara cannot finish him in the first 3 or 4 minutes, he's going to run out of steam, and I would expect Issa to actually grind him out and win a decision. So, man, I know it's crazy to think, especially for somebody at a decent dog price right now, but Alcantara he's such a flawed fighter right now. He is so powerful, has great submissions. I mean, he can knock anybody out in the bantamweight division, and he could definitely knock Issa out because Issa is not a great striker. He's improving, but he is not even close to anything like resembling even an above average striker, really. So Alcantara can clip him early. He can submit him if he hurts him. He can jump on him, pound him away on the ground. But if that doesn't happen, Alcantara's gas tank is so bad that Issa can get on top of him or push him against the fence and just kind of have his way with him in terms of wrestling and top control. So I'm putting my stake in the fact that Issa is going to survive that early storm from Alcantara, and then he's going to grind this out and win a decision. So I'm picking the underdog, Leandro Issa. Now moving up to the welterweight division, we have Warley Alves, who is 9-0, taking on Nordine Taleb, who is 10-2. Now, Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Up in Alves, minus 230, the comeback on Taleb, plus 170, and right now it's Alves minus 225, plus 185 on Taleb. So line basically got a little bit tighter, a little bit of two-way action coming in. Nothing significant here in this fight as far as movement goes. It seems like the line's about fair. Honestly, Alves has several advantages, I think, in this fight, and it's pure finishing ability and is one of them, I think. I think he's a little bit more dangerous on the feet. I think he's a little bit more steady, and I think a little bit more, I would say, dependable as far as chin goes, too. I know Taleb has only been knocked out officially once in his career, but, man, the guy's chin is always a little bit of a concern. That's why I'm saying that with Alves at this point, although Alves does definitely need to tighten up that stand-up defense as well. But Alves' sub game is legit as well. I mean, he's a finisher. He's capable of finishing the fight, on the ground or on the feet, wherever it takes place. He's aggressive. He's hyped, of course. He's the Ultimate Fighter winner. A lot of people were expecting some fantastic, things from this guy. And honestly, he probably underperformed a little bit against, Joban in his last fight. And it's kind of brought his stock down a little bit because a lot of people were expecting a better performance, even though Joban is an outstanding fighter and a very tough guy to beat, obviously. And since that time, I mean, he's looked great. It was an impressive but controversial win for Alves. So a lot of people believe he should have lost that fight, and you can't argue that, man. I mean, honestly, I scored that fight for Joban as well. So, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there did as well. So Alves, why I'm saying all that is because he's a little bit of a letdown. And I think his issue is really cardio needs to be a little bit better. Again, he needs to tighten things up defensively a little bit as well. But against Taleb, it's going to be a different story. I think that he's going to be effective with his striking. He's going to have the youth advantage, of course, on his side. Taleb is just one of those fighters that almost fights to the level of his opponents and kind of squeaks by fighters. He does have a little bit of power on the feet. He's a complete fighter. He's got some underrated wrestling to go along with it. But I think he's going to struggle against Alves getting the takedowns. I think Alves is, again, a little bit more of the precise, more powerful striker, more accurate striker a little bit, and more dangerous striker. So I think if it stays on the feet, Alves is going to have a little bit of an advantage there. I think if it goes to the ground, Alves' sub game is going to come into play as well. I think he's got an advantage pretty much everywhere the fight takes place, although Talib is going to be the bigger guy. He's going to have some strength for sure, so it's not going to be an easy fight. I think Talib's actually going to hang in there and make this a fight, but as far as dependability, I don't trust Talib's chin as much. I think if it hits the scorecards, Alves is probably going to win there as well, and I think if there's going to be obviously a finish, I think it's probably going to be Alves finishing Talib. So with all that being said, I am expecting a pretty competitive fight throughout. Talib, even though he's a little bit overrated, I think he's still not an easy guy to get through. So this is going to be a test for Alves, but I think it is a test that he can pass and he should pass. So I think he's going to get some momentum back here after a very solid win over Talib, and so I'm going to have to go with the pick, Alves, for the win.
Yeah, it's crazy. Talib is a guy that went 0-2 on 2 different seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, but in the UFC, he's 3-0 now. So he's had quite a bit of an impressive comeback story, but I think he finally reaches his ceiling here against Alves. Alves won the Ultimate Fighter for Brazil. I mean, he is one of the better prospects to come out of that show, honestly. While he definitely didn't look great in his last fight against Jouban, I think that's also a testament to just how good Alan Jouban really is. Jouban really gave him all he could handle. Now, Alves, in my opinion, needs to harness that striking ability a little bit more. He seemed a little too focused on trying to get takedowns and everything in his last fight. And he is a dangerous striker. He has a lot of power. He's explosive. He's dangerous. And he can definitely get inside on Nordin Taleb and hurt him. And in terms of the ground game, I expect Alves to be a slightly better wrestler and to definitely have the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in this fight. But I'm a little worried that he could end up on his back because Talib, he's got a pretty good fight IQ. I mean, he went in there against Chris Clements and just outworked him and got top position and did his thing. I mean, that's what he does. He goes out there, and it's not always pretty, but Talib wins fights. And if Warlley Alves runs out of steam a little bit or gasses, he could get himself in a bit of trouble here. But again, I really don't see Nordin Taleb as going much higher here in the welterweight division. This definitely feels like a step down in competition for Alves, who just had a tough fight against Jouban. He's had a lot of time to work on his training, to get back in and sharpen some of those tools that he has. And I expect Alves to come out here aggressive, and he's just a good prospect that needed a little bit more refinement. He's still only just 24 years old. And Taleb, on the other hand, he's getting up there a little bit. He's 34, so 10-year age gap. And I just think this is Alves' time to shine. Taleb doesn't pack a lot of power. There's very little chance for a finish coming from Taleb. So Alves really doesn't have to worry about that. He can kind of wade forward into danger and just try to knock Taleb's head off. And he could also just grind this out as well. I mean, I think Alves is well-rounded enough that he can win this fight pretty much anywhere he wants. So I'm going to pick Warlley Alves. Now moving up to the light heavyweight division, we have Rafael Feijão Cavalcante, who is 12-5 with 1 no contest, taking on Patrick Cummins, who is 7-2. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
I opened Cummins minus 155, the comeback on Cavalcante plus 115. Right now, looking over at 5 dimes, it's minus 160 for Cummins. The comeback on Cavalcante is plus 140. Tough fight to pick, tough fight to call, tough fight to bet. Across the board, really, with these guys. I mean, obviously, we know that what Cummins brings to the table. He's in MMA years, MMA experience. He's still evolving and learning and getting better as a fighter, but he has that outstanding wrestling background. He's got some good power on the feet. He's improving overall on the feet as well. So he's no slouch, even, offensively at least, standing. He could definitely drop some bombs and have some success with his knockout power. But his bread and butter, make no mistake, is taking the fight to the floor, grinding out his opponents, dropping some ground and pound, which he's pretty good at doing. He's pretty accurate with his punishment on the ground as well, and just controlling the tempo of the fight. So he's your typical grinder that is getting better. Again, I mean, in MMA years, he's very raw. Now, that being said, Cavalcante, he's the veteran, the savvy vet that's been in there with some of the best in the world, even outside of the UFC. He has a BJJ background that's phenomenal. I mean, he doesn't use it much in MMA, but he definitely has submission skill, capable of defending subs as well. So he's more than sound on the ground. And what highlights his game really is his knockout power. I mean, the guy has outstanding power in both hands, really. He's fairly accurate. He knows how to use it. His takedown defense and wrestling has improved over the years as well. So it's not easy to control this guy and basically manhandle him, and then you got to take some punishment when you are trying to get inside and take him down. So Calvin Conte is a very dangerous fighter. But the problem with Calvin Conte is he just hasn't been that consistent. His cardio has always been an issue. He's been, in the past, he's had some, problems with getting popped for PEDs as well. So we don't know where he stands in that. As far as that aspect, how much that's going to hurt his game. Against Ryan Bader in his last fight, he was taken down and controlled a little bit. That's why Bader ended up ultimately getting the decision there as well. And I think Cummings is a similar type of wrestler that Bader is, and he probably can get this fight down. So Calvin Conte is going to need to really improve on that takedown defense even more, even though it's solid, and try to do some damage on the feet against Patrick Cummings. But I don't really trust Calvin Conte's chin either. I mean, you have kind of the battle of the chins here. Both of the guys have been knocked out several times each. So you really can't trust it either way. That seems to be another flaw in both their games. So I think, both of them have enough knockout power on the feet that they can catch each other at any time and put each other out. But I do favor on the feet Calvin Conte. You have to. I think he is the better striker and the more dangerous striker. And Cummings, again, is still learning. So I think he's got some catching up to do there. But I do think that Cummings can implement that game plan, get some takedowns along the way. If his chin holds up, he probably wins on the scorecard. So tough call, but I have to slightly lean towards Cummings. He's been a little bit more consistent. Again, he's a fresher, younger fighter, barely younger, but in MMA years at least. And I think he's probably going to get a big win in Brazil.
Cavalcante has a great history against wrestlers. I mean, he went in there against King Mo, took the title from him when Mo was in his, prime in Strikeforce. And then he faced Yoel Romero in Strikeforce. Granted, this was at light heavyweight before Romero decided to drop down, but Romero is an elite Olympic medal-winning wrestler, and Cavalcante knocked him out. Granted, I don't think Romero attempted a lot of takedowns or anything in that fight, but still. So he's faced some really good wrestlers in the past and done fine. He's also, in his most recent performance, faced a wrestler in Ryan Bader who took him down for 3 rounds and just wore him down and ground him out and got a decision. So it's a tale of two Feijiaos. Which one are we going to get? The guy that can stuff takedowns, that can hammer King Mo with elbows along the fence, Travis Brown style, or the Feijiao that just gets taken down? And honestly, Pat Cummins' wrestling is just as good as Ryan Bader's. He has very explosive, great entries, and honestly, the only people that have been unable to stop his takedowns have been really, really tremendously athletic fighters like Daniel Cormier, who is the better wrestler anyway, and then Ovince St. Preux in his last fight, where Cummins just could not get that fight to the ground and keep it there, and then OSP was able to knock him out. So this fight is 100% reliant on whether or not Cummins can take Feijiao down. Because if he can wear him out, he can win the fight. I mean, he beat Antonio Carlos Jr. with a consistent takedown offense. Granted, Carlos Jr. was pulling guard a little bit in that fight too, but Carlos Jr. is a great fighter, dropped down to middleweight, and has been a complete monster in that debut. So Cummins has that ability to go out there and out-wrestle and outwork some really talented opponents. And if Feijiao cannot stop the takedown, I see Cummins winning this fight for 3 straight rounds, or maybe getting a TKO on the ground. On the feet, I don't respect Cummins on the feet whatsoever. He's just not at that elite level. And Feijiao, while he doesn't have a good chin, he should be good enough with his technical defense to avoid anything Cummins throws at him, just because Cummins just doesn't offer that much yet in that department. He's still got a ways to go, and he really shouldn't be screwing around on the feet that much, other than just to set up a takedown attempt. Because if it stays standing, Feijiao is going to knock out Cummins. But if it goes to the ground, Cummins not only could win by decision, he could win by TKO. He can wear you out. He can drop some good bombs if he can get enough space. And Feijiao really doesn't have an elite enough ground game to stop what Cummins is throwing at him, because Cummins is just so strong and has good instincts with his wrestling. I mean, he was able to outmaneuver Carlos Jr.'s multiple submission attempts. So I'm actually slightly leaning Pat Cummins because Feijiao just has been so inconsistent in his MMA career, and he hasn't fought in over a year. He's always seemingly injured, and Cummins has been able to come in and stay healthy and stay active. And I think he actually comes in here into Brazil, hostile territory, and picks up a win. So I'm going to pick Pat Cummins. Now, Reed, what do the numbers tell us for this one?
Well, the numbers are absolutely extreme, and I wrote about this a bit on MMA Oddsbreaker this week, but Rafael Cavalcante, this guy only wins by strikes, ever. He's never been to a decision that he won. He's never submitted someone except by punches, so I'm classifying that as a TKO. And then you've got a pure wrestler, Patrick Cummins. He's not afraid to just drag you down and lie on you for 3 rounds. He did that to Kyle Kingsbury, who's a good wrestler in his own right. And his fault is that he's been clipped twice and knocked out. So you've got perhaps a chinny wrestler versus a pure striker who lives and dies with his hands. And if he doesn't get it done with strikes, then he's going to lose. So this is about as extreme a scenario for wrestler versus striker as I've ever seen. And so I definitely think you usually lean towards the wrestler, especially if they're a good one. Ryan Bader, obviously strong wrestler, defeated Cavalcante most recently. But then again, Cavalcante knocked out Romero. You know, he's been both ways here. So lots of volatility. I expect the line should stay close here because you simply can't go one direction too far. You have to account for the fact that the other guy does have a path to victory. I'm going to lean Cummins. I think he does get the takedowns. He is extremely aggressive with them. He doesn't waste any time. He just goes right for the takedown, and his success rate is good. And Cavalcante, his takedown defense is about average. So I would want to see either Cavalcante having a lot more range or much better takedown defense to believe that he can keep this standing. You know, if he does, he's the more accurate striker. He's arguably the most powerful striker on this entire card. He definitely knocks Cummins out if Cummins tries to go toe-to-toe with him. But I do see enough evidence that Cummins should get this to the ground. He's going to have to do it 3 rounds in a row, no mistakes, grind this one out, and that's how he gets the win. So it is still a close call. You can't lay a lot of juice on Cummins here because he obviously can be knocked out. But I am going to lean Cummins.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Reed. Now, dropping down to the welterweight division, we have Demian Maia, who is 20-6, taking on Neil Magny, who is 15-4. Now, Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
I opened Maia minus 190, the comeback on Magny plus 150, and right now looking over at dimes, it is Maia minus 160, the comeback on Magny is plus 140. So 10-cent drop on the dog right now. Early action did come in on Magny, dropped all the way down to a pick'em almost exactly. In fact, Magny might have even been $1.20, $1.25 favorite at one point. Then action started coming back in on Maia as well. So making it back to 160. So a lot of decent opinions on both sides of this fight, meaning, a lot of split opinions out there, period. A lot of people believe that Magny's improvements, and his role is going to continue. And man, it's hard not to respect what Magny has accomplished, really. I think that, he's always had a skill set, but he's definitely, upped it to a whole nother level recently. That win streak he's on is incredible. He's finishing opponents now as well. He's capable of, out wrestling his opponents. Anywhere the fight takes place, he's game. But that being said, he does have some flaws, and I think one of his main weaknesses is the ground against really good, outstanding grapplers, and it is exactly what he's facing in Demian Maia. That's why Maia is entering as a favorite, and that's why I think, honestly, Maia's probably going to get the job done here and put an end to Magny's win streak. Maia on the ground has been phenomenal. If you look at who he's faced, he's had really a decent amount of success over everybody, even in his losses. Even in that fight, Rory McDonald was just fighting for the title, and, Maia, even at age 37, well, he was obviously a little bit younger there, a year or so, but even at age 36, 37, he was able to be competitive in that McDonald fight, and because of his ground game more than anything else. So he's tough as nails as far as durability goes overall. His cardio has always been a little bit of an issue with Maia, but he's been going 5 rounds recently as well. So I think he does have the stamina in him to make this a 3-round fight and continuously go for takedowns and try to control the grappling. But the biggest advantage he does definitely have is the submission game. I think once Maia gets the fight to the floor, he's smart enough and his fight IQ is good enough, and he's just such a great finisher on the ground that he's going to probably take Magny's back, sink in a rear naked choke. If he doesn't do that, he's probably going to grab a limb and maneuver to a good position and just try to finish the fight that way. So I think there's a really strong possibility Maia finishes Magny by submission on the ground. If he doesn't do that, I think that Maia could probably get enough takedowns along the way to at least win 2 clear rounds out of the 3 and end up winning on the scorecards as well. Now, of course, I do have to consider, again, all of Magny's improvements. He's been working very hard. He's going to be the longer fighter here. He's going to be the younger fighter here, and he's going to be the better striker here. So a 37-year-old Chin going up against a younger, confident, outstanding long striker is always a risk, and it's always danger there for sure. So would I be shocked if Magny does end up catching Maia and knocking him out along the way or finishing him? I wouldn't be super surprised that it happens. But more times than not, I honestly think that Maia probably gets this fight to the ground, and on the ground he can win it either on the cards or by sub. So I think that's how it's going to play out. Unfortunately for Magny, his run's going to come to an end. I am picking Damian Maia to win this fight.
Magny has been on an absolute tear. And while he does have a couple good wins over some, fringe guys in the top 25 or so, Tim Means, Alex Garcia, and Hyung-Ju Lim most recently, he still doesn't have that signature win. He hasn't beat anybody in the top 15. And this is definitely would be a signature win for Magny, because Maia is ranked number 6 right now in the UFC's welterweight division. And Maia, he's a former title challenger at middleweight. He is an elite grappler, and he actually presents a lot of the things that Magny has had trouble with in the past. Now, Magny has one of the biggest advantages of any fighter in any weight class. He has a monstrous reach for the welterweight division, and he has started to use it. He's getting much better with his striking. He is getting to the point where, he can jab you. He can use that range. He can stay at distance if he wants. And I think even more impressive for Magny has been his resilience during this win streak and his conditioning. I mean, he just outpaces you, and then when you slow down, he takes over and wins the fight. And he started finishing guys too. Before it was all decisions, and now he's actually becoming a bit of a force. So I have been super, super impressed with Neil Magny in terms of what he's developed and improved. But you have to go back and look at what were his issues when he did lose. He didn't have a great chin. He got knocked out on The Ultimate Fighter, but hasn't been knocked out yet, although he did get hurt in his last fight against Hyung-Ju Lim, just didn't get finished. And his submission defense was an issue. I mean, Sergio Moraes is a guy with almost as good of a ground game as Damian Maia, and he made mincemeat out of Neil Magny in Brazil, which is where this fight's taking place. So if Damian Maia can get Magny on his back, drag him to the ground, which he's been able to get good wrestlers, good fighters on their back repeatedly in fights. He had Rory McDonald on his back. He had Ryan LaFleur repeatedly down for 4 straight rounds in his last fight. So Damian Maia has that ability to take fights to the ground. Even if his wrestling isn't amazing, he can just close the distance, drag you down. He has a lot of little tricks due to that veteran experience. So if Magny can do that, or if Maia can take Magny down, he's probably going to win this fight. That ground game is so impressive that he probably will tie Magny up a little bit, because Moraes turned Magny into a human pretzel and just absolutely blistered him in Magny's last loss. He's been on the great win streak since, but this is a similar fighter in Maia, who is an older Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, that if he gets Magny down, I don't think Magny's ground game has improved enough that he's going to be able to survive it, because Maia is so quick to jump on your back. So I can see Maia just taking a dominant position, and if he can't get the submission, just riding it out. Magny does have good wrestling, but it's a little scary. He's going to have to really, really focus on footwork and positioning and distance, and force Maia to shoot from way outside, because Maia isn't a great wrestler. He doesn't have a great shot. His takedowns usually come from just getting inside and working trips, working all kinds of little judo tosses and stuff. So if Maia cannot get that wrestling going, Magny's going to outstrike him and then maybe even finish him late. Maia's conditioning is a bit of an issue. He does slow down in fights. He slowed down in the Rory fight badly in the 3rd round. He slowed down horribly in the 5th round of the LaFleur fight. But granted, that was a 5-round fight. He was able to go the first 3 rounds fine, and the 4th round was a little iffy. So maybe his conditioning is a little bit better, but at 37 years old, that is a concern. There is a 10-year age gap, so that is something else you have to consider. Magny will be the fresher, younger guy, but man, if Maia can get him to the ground, I really think he's got a good shot. And this is such a huge leap up in competition for Magny. It might be too much. So I'm slightly leaning Demian Maia. I think he can take Magny down. I think he can submit him, or he can just ride out a decision. I don't think the conditioning will be as much of a factor as people think, just because Maia was able to go 4 in his last fight before running out of steam. So I think Maia can go 3 here. So I'm going to pick Demian Maia. Now, Reed, what do the numbers tell us for this one?
Well, on paper, the numbers disagree, and they actually like Neil Magny, the underdog. But there's a huge caveat in terms of different levels of competition. Maia has only looked bad against elite competition, title holders, title challengers, whereas Magny, despite the fact that he's on this crazy streak, he just really has not faced high-quality competition. So when you look at this at Magny, first of all, the reach is ridiculous. 81 inches officially, massive reach advantage over pretty much everybody he's ever fought, with the exception of his last opponent. And his metrics support that. They show up as someone who has a reach advantage. He's more accurate. He's hard to hit. He's able to dictate the pace of the striking exchanges. He's not a huge power striker. He does have one knockdown, but mainly he's just a very efficient and effective striker because of that range. And Demian Maia is not. He's a below average striker. He tends to get hit more than he strikes. He can't keep up with his opponents on the feet, doesn't have a lot of power. He has been dropped twice. And all of that, I think, is because he's usually going for takedowns. He's not worrying about striking. He's diving headfirst. He's just relentlessly attacking the legs. And that also drags down his takedown accuracy. He's actually below average by that metric. But that's just because he's willing to miss a few and just stay on you until he gets it. Once on the ground, Brian mentioned how good Demian Maia is at finding his way to back control. If you look at all the different positions that you can be in on the mat, Demian Maia spends half of all his time controlling an opponent either in full mount or in back control. Now, the normal metric for that would be about 15%, not 50%. So Demian Maia is very effective at finding his way to a dominant position. So I agree with you. If he gets Magny on the ground, he's going to own him. And he can control him for 3 rounds. That's one way. Maybe he eventually gets the choke. Neil Magny, though, his takedown defense is actually pretty good. It's above average, and he's got that range. So this is a situation of, do I believe the numbers that Magny can keep this standing and then pick him apart on the feet? Or do I recognize the fact that he just has not faced a grappling threat like Maia, and that he's going to have to be more conservative and he's going to have to back up, and eventually he might run out of room and get taken down and controlled there. Again, numerically, I have to lean towards Magny. I got to believe these numbers, but I do concede that there's a big difference in competition, and that's a caveat here that makes this whole fight a lot less certain.
Now, kicking off the pay-per-view main card in the women's strawweight division, we have a potential number 1 contenders fight between Claudia Gadelha, who is 12-1, and Jessica Aguilar, who is 19-4. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
I opened Gadelha minus 265, the comeback on Aguilar plus 185. There has been some decent movement in this fight. It's Gadelha now minus 450, the comeback on Aguilar plus 360. Am I surprised with the line movement? A little bit. Gadelha, of course, is a talented fighter. I mean, she took Jacek, which is obviously now the strawweight champion, to the max, to the limit. I mean, she could have easily won that fight if there was different judges as well. It was such a competitive fight. I do believe that Jacek deserved to win that fight, but I'm just saying, I mean, she was that game, and a lot of other people probably did score for Gadelha. So that's how good this girl is. I mean, Jacek has looked phenomenal, and this has been her best challenge to date, and arguably could be right up there, winning that title if she gets past Aguilar here in her next fight, because this is a number 1 contenders match, as Brian mentioned. But Aguilar here, here's the tricky part. I mean, she's been recognized as the best strawweight fighter in the world for a while now, really. I mean, she's faced outstanding competitions. She's a true vet of the sports. She trains at a good Camp American top team, and she's been beating fighters, really outstanding fighters, top of the food chain type of fighters for a while now. I know she's had a couple controversial wins in there amongst all of it, but still, I mean, her resume is very impressive, and she does have the total package on the feet. She has fight IQ. I really enjoy watching her boxing. She has good footwork, good movement, a little bit of speed, a little bit of power to go along with it. On the ground, another well-rounded fighter, so she's capable of getting the fight to the floor, controlling it. Her wrestling is better than most in the strawweight division, no doubt about that. And then she has a jiu-jitsu game to go along with it, so she's a very complete fighter. Why Gadelha is the favorite here and why she's that much of a favorite is, again, I just pointed out that the fact that a lot of people respect Jacek and she hung in there with her so well. But not just that. I mean, what I said right now about Aguilar, you could say a lot of the same things about Gadelha as well. I think that she does have a little bit better striking, and I'm saying that she might not be as technical as Aguilar at times, but she does have a little bit more pure power, I think, on the feet. She's getting better in that aspect of the game, always improving. She's young enough that she's going to take drastic steps in improvement. She's only 26 years old, so I think she could be very effective on the feet. But again, she thrives on her ground game, on her submission skill, on her grinding style. She's a very strong fighter. So I think really Gadelha has the edge over Aguilar almost across the board. So I can understand again why the action is coming in on Gadelha, because really this fight should hit the scorecards. I think that they're both good enough to withstand whatever they throw at each other. So I think their game basically gets neutralized across the board as far as finish goes. So I think it's pretty much a no-brainer that the fight should hit the scorecards more times than not. And if that's the case, you're going to see competitive but a clear enough decision for Gadelha to win this fight. So I think she is going to outwork Aguilar a little bit, at least land the cleaner punches on the feet. I think she's going to control the fight a little bit more up against the cage, and if it does end up on the ground, of course, I think Gadelha is going to actually end up in top position more often than not as well. So everywhere that the fight takes place, I do give the edge to Gadelha, and I think that if it does hit the scorecards, I'd be really surprised if she doesn't get the nod here. So it's her fight to win or lose, but man, make no mistake about this one either. Aguilar's going to come in here with a point to prove. She's going to be motivated. She's getting her shot in the UFC finally. And again, widely recognized as the number one strawweight fighter in the world. She was going to want to prove why that's the case here. So she's going to be game. She's going to be motivated, and she's going to have a good game plan, I'm sure. But that being said, everything to me still points to Gadelha winning this fight. So I have to go with Claudia Gadelha for the win.
Yeah, Jessica Aguilar was the number one ranked women's strawweight in the world. She just never really had the opportunity to fight in the UFC. Like right before they announced the strawweight division, she signed a deal with World Series of Fighting, and it just never really happened. So it's been unfortunate for her, and the strawweight division has just kind of moved on without her, and she's been kind of forced to fight whoever she can find that would make an interesting opponent. Now, with Gadelha, man, she has risen to the top, the cream of the crop, really, in the strawweight division, other than Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And honestly, that fight against Jędrzejczyk seriously could have gone either way. It was razor close. Now, Aguilar, she has gone out there and defeated a lot of really talented women in the women's strawweight division, especially before this division was brought to the UFC. I mean, she beat Carla Esparza, who was briefly the UFC women's strawweight champ. She had wins over Megumi Fuji, just a legend in the strawweight division. So she's definitely a really talented fighter. But coming in here against Gadelha is so physical and so strong and such a talented grappler and so powerful that I think she's going to have a lot of advantages against Aguilar. Gadelha is also much younger than Aguilar, so she's going to have that youthful exuberance, although Aguilar has looked a lot better, especially since she became a full-time fighter in the last couple of years. So she just hasn't really had the competition in World Series of Fighting that can keep her at that elite level, while all these other girls are just facing each other in the top 10 repeatedly. So while Aguilar is a talented fighter, she has good footwork, she has a very good submission game, she's a bit more of a point fighter on the feet. It doesn't really do a lot of damage in that department, and while she does have some submission ability, I don't expect her to get anything going in that department against Gadelha, who is an incredibly talented grappler and should definitely have the wrestling advantage. Gadelha will. Now, in terms of punching power, Gadelha should have an edge there as well. She hits hard, and I expect her to push the pace against Aguilar, although Aguilar could be the more technical striker. It would not surprise me. Aguilar also should have the better footwork and better conditioning. Gadelha has had a bit of issues with slowing down in fights because she cuts a tremendous amount of weight. It saps a lot out of her energy. especially the conditioning department. So if Gadelha runs out of steam here, which is a very real possibility, Aguilar could take over, but the problem is I don't see Gadelha slowing down until the third round, and by then she should be up 2-0, and I don't see Jessica Aguilar finishing her. So I think Aguilar is a talented fighter. She's going to be in the top 5 in the strawweight division and could someday fight for the title against Young Jacek, but I just don't think she wins this UFC debut. I think it's a really tough task for her to make her UFC debut against Gadelha in Brazil. So I'm going to pick Claudia Gadelha to pull this one out. Now moving all the way up to the heavyweight division, we have Antonio Bigfoot Silva, who is 18-7 with 1 no contest, taking on Soa Palele, who is 22-4. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
I opened Palele minus 230, the comeback on Silva plus 170, and right now over at 5 dimes, it is Palele minus 200, the comeback on Silva is plus 170. So a little bit of back and forth action on this fight as well. It's surprising, I think, to a lot of people that Palele is actually favored over Bigfoot Silva. I mean, you're talking about the guy that recently fought for a title. And made his way up towards the top of the food chain in the heavyweight division, and has a win over legendary Fedor as well. So, I mean, Bigfoot is definitely a talented fighter. He's been around for a while and deserves some respect. And Palele, which hasn't really been on most people's radar as a heavyweight, or even in just, I think the general respect from the casual or diehard MMA fans haven't really been there for Palele, but that's starting to change a little bit. Palele on social media, Palele based on his performances in the octagon and his work ethic and his improvements, he's definitely gaining some popularity, gaining some fans, gaining some momentum, and I think he's going to bring that into this fight with Silva. So this is a good matchup for him. This could be the biggest win of his career by far. So not going to be an easy one, though. It all depends. I mean, looking at this fight, I mean, they both match up well. I think Silva honestly has an advantage across the board as far as MMA skill set goes. Silva is the better striker. I think Silva actually probably the more technical wrestler. He's got the BJJ advantage as well. So really, he's got it across the board. But the problem is, you're talking about an aging Silva, again, 35 years old. He's actually a couple years younger than Palele, but we're talking about MMA years and the wars that Silva's been in and the KO losses that he suffered. I mean, the guy's been knocked out 6 times. He's been rocked more than that. So it's really taken a toll on him. And of course, with the steroid issue, everything going on in his background as well, now he's got to be clean off the peds, and then that devastating loss to Frank Mir didn't really help his case much. Again, the same thing you could say before that against Arlovsky. Arlovsky just floored him as well. So coming off really back-to-back KO losses that have Silva looked terrible. I mean, he looked awful in those fights. So how can you really have much faith left in Silva these days? And the UFC matchmaking, even though, again, Palele is a couple years older, Palele is definitely the fresher fighter. He's been the more improved fighter as of late as well. His wrestling is getting better. If you look at, thus far throughout his UFC performances, he's only had one bad performance. I don't even want to say bad because he was very competitive against Rolschwald. I think actually his Krylov fight and really was his worst fight to date, even though he ended up winning that fight. But other than that, he showed improvements along the way against Barry, against Potts. Of course, Potts not much of an opponent, but even in his last fight, his win over Harris, that was pretty impressive as well. So he does have knockout power. I mean, the guy's fists are huge, and they're like bricks, man. When he lands, I'll tell you what, you can't really take much. I mean, that's how strong this guy is. And with that big target on Silva's shoulders, I mean, matching up with the huge power that Palele does have, even though he might not be the quickest or the most technical striker, he throws some bombs, and I think he could clip Silva on the feet. I think if this fight ends up in the clinch, he can maybe do some damage in the clinch, or if he gets top position for sure, I think he can end Silva's night as well. So going to be interesting because Silva is the better fighter, and maybe we're all underestimating his abilities, and he comes in here and just destroys Palele. Maybe that's possible, but I don't think that's the case. I think this is a fight that is really made for Palele to win. I think he's probably going to do it from what we've seen, with Silva recently and the improvements we've seen for Palele. I think it's kind of, I don't want to say an easy call, but it's kind of a no-brainer at this point to actually pick Palele. So that's where I'm going to go with it. It's a tough one to bet, though. Hard to have faith in either one of these guys at the betting window these days, but my official pick is going to be Palele to beat Silva.
Yeah, this is definitely a tricky fight, and it's mainly a tricky fight because of how badly Antonio Silva has dropped in the heavyweight division. I mean, he is, at this point, not anything to do with the title picture. I mean, he is not even deserving to be in the top 15, in my opinion, after his recent performances. But if I could say one thing in that, while he hasn't looked good and he's been losing a lot of fights, he is getting knocked out by some of the better guys in the division. I mean, Kane twice, Daniel Cormier before he dropped down to light heavyweight, Andrei Arlovski, and then most recently former champion Frank Mir, who is now on a 2-fight win streak after he just beat Todd Duffy. So I don't think that these are bad opponents to lose to. So Palele would be a bad opponent to lose to. He is just not an elite level heavyweight. He's older. He is slow. He's not athletic. And while Nick mentioned he does have knockout power, he doesn't have stand-up knockout power. So Palele is a very one-dimensional fighter in that he has a decent ground game. He's extremely big and strong for the division, and he drags people to the ground, and then he wails on them. And that's how he has finished every single one of his recent UFC fights since he came back to the UFC. He gets on top of guys, and he just starts pounding on them until the fight gets stopped. So he has huge power when he's on top. But other than that, he's not very dangerous. He's not dangerous in the clinch. He's not dangerous in open space. He's really not dangerous when he's on his back. And if Antonio Bigfoot Silva just can avoid getting taken down, I think he's in okay shape here. Now, he has been taken down before. Kane got him on his back and just wailed on him. So that is something of a concern. But again, So Palele is not Cain Velasquez. And man, I know Antonio Bigfoot Silva has been on a rough patch here and he has looked awful, especially since he dropped the TRT. I mean, the Arlovski and Mir fights, I mean, he has looked atrocious. First round knockouts, both times, just getting blasted on the feet and then finished quickly on the ground. So the thing is, I just don't see So Palele having that explosion to get in there, take advantage of Bigfoot Silva being a more of a lumbering guy and then cracking him. So, man, this is a tricky fight for me because, you know, is Antonio Silva that done in his career that So Palele can take advantage of it? I'm not quite convinced. I mean, this is still a guy that knocked out Alistair Overeem. This is still a guy that knocked out Travis Brown, beat Fedor Emelianenko, beat Arlovski the first time through, and he has some really impressive wins on his record. I mean, there's a reason he earned a title shot against Cain Velasquez. Now, his chin is terrible. Like, if these guys are trading punch for punch, it's going to be Bigfoot that goes down. But So Palele's probably not going to be trading punch for punch with anybody on the feet. He's just not that type of fighter. He wants to get on top of you. He wants to drop those, you know, lunch boxes for fists on your face. And man, I don't know if he can. I mean, Bigfoot Silva is a really talented ground fighter. I mean, he beat Fedor from top position, was able to get on top of him. Same thing with Mike Kyle in the Strikeforce. He hasn't been using that nearly as much in the UFC, so that is a concern. So if he just wants to stand at distance, he could get himself in some trouble. I hope that he has at least learned something here from this string of defeats where he has lost 3 of his last 4. And the only non-loss was the fight of the year against Mark Hunt. But again, he was on TRT for that. So how much of a deficit is it for him to be off that testosterone? How much has he fallen off? I don't know. I don't think he's fallen off to the point where So Palele can beat him. I just can't believe that yet. I need to see it. So until then, I'm going to pick Bigfoot Silva to beat So Palele. I think he can out-wrestle him. I think he can beat him in the clinch. And even in open space, when Bigfoot Silva is at a disadvantage against quick, explosive strikers, he should still be a little quicker than So Palele. So I'm going to pick Bigfoot Silva. I am not confident, and he could just get smashed in this fight, but we'll see. But I'm picking Bigfoot at this point. Now, Reed, what do the numbers tell us for this one?
Well, they generally agree with some of the conclusions we're drawing here. First of all, Palele is not the most effective striker. He is accurate and he has decent defense, but he does not really engage with people. He is hesitant to initiate exchanges. He fails to keep up with his opponent. He's averaging only 5 strike attempts per minute on his feet. That is ridiculously low. That's among the lowest in the entire UFC. I think only Gunnar Nelson going into the last fight was less than that. So on the feet, he's not the guy that's going to be aggressive and catch Silva on the chin, because that is really the biggest concern with Antonio Silva. He's off the tee now. He has poor head strike defense. He likes to eat punches, and they've been dropping him lately. He's now been dropped 7 times in recorded competition. That is a lot. So if they go toe to toe, you're right. Silva is a liability, but Palele just isn't really designed as an opponent to be able to take advantage of that. Now, what he does do well is get himself in top control and pound people out. And so his takedowns have been coming at a high rate. He's been pretty good at getting people down. The one loss here that we have to point out is against the wrestler, Rochelle. So, that went the distance, and Palele simply didn't have the same game plan. But everybody else, it seems to be working. And Silva is definitely vulnerable on his back. He's been almost willing to be taken there and then surprised that he gets completely pounded out. And Palele could do that. So I see a high amount of uncertainty here with Palele especially. I simply don't have a good feel for how good his stand-up game is, because it looks so weird. You don't normally see a guy who is accurate and evasive, but just doesn't pull the trigger nearly ever. And so whoever ends up in top control probably has a monster advantage. And then on the feet, complete wild card. Palele maybe does throw a good punch and puts Silva away. Maybe Silva keeps moving, starts boxing a little bit, and his striking stats are surely not very technical. So it's going to be two of the slower heavyweights we've ever seen going at it, and that's why I really just can't form an opinion on this one in terms of who's going to win. I just think someone probably will get finished. These are heavyweights again, and Silva did, burn everyone with that crazy draw, but now he's again not on the testosterone. So I think he's a little bit more fragile. So that's really the only prediction I have here.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Reed. Now sticking with the heavyweight division, we have a very intriguing matchup in Stefan Struve, who's 29-7, taking on Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, who is 34-9-1 with 1 no contest. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
I opened Struve minus 175, the comeback on Nogueira plus 135, and right now it is Struve minus 170, the comeback on Nogueira plus 150. Again, another spot where two actions come in. A lot of split opinions on this fight as well. Another tough one to call, really. Struve has been out and inconsistent for quite a while, and when he did come back, obviously, he had that situation with Mitrione, and he wasn't able to actually make it into the octagon. He had since then come back and he got knocked out by Overeem. So there's a lot of question marks, I think, surrounding Struve right now. But before that, he was on an incredible streak. He was on an incredible path really towards the title. Towards the title shot at least. He had some impressive wins, impressive performances, always improving confident-wise. He's actually filling out his frame, getting stronger to go along with really good technique. On the feet he's dangerous, on the ground he's dangerous. Struve is just a complete fighter. He's a little slow. I would like to see him, obviously, with this frame and everything, it's kind of hard to be really that agile and fast and, use speed effectively. But that being said, he does well with what he's got, minus the one thing that he doesn't do that great on, and he can't help that either, is that chin is definitely suspect. It's kind of hard to say that at times, but at the same time, maybe it's a little bit tougher than we give it credit for because it's held up under some decent competition, but it does definitely hinder him at times as well. So Struve's chin, a little bit suspect. I think overall he does have a pretty complete game. And then you're talking about somebody that's probably on the decline. It is Nogueira. The guy, again, technically speaking, I think Nogueira is the better fighter. And we were just mentioning that about Silva and Palele, obviously, as well. And I do think that Silva's the better fighter there. And I think Nogueira is the better fighter here. I think he's better pretty much everywhere. I think the stand-up game, Nog's boxing is definitely a little bit more effective. I think it's smooth. I think his ground game as far as jiu-jitsu is better than Struve's as well, even though Struve's very talented, as I mentioned, on the ground. I think wrestling, Nog's better at that as well. Everything, just across the board, Nogueira is the better fighter. But the problem is he's 39 years old, and we were talking about fighters that are actually beyond that in MMA years. And Nogueira, throughout his career, has been in a lot of wars. He's been in some fantastic battles, some awesome fights. So that's taking its toll. And I think right now, talking about slow, Nogueira has been really slow as well. I think that's one thing that hinders him. He's 39 years old. His chin is not going to hold up as well as it used to. But really, if you look at his losses, his loss to Fabricio Verdum, I think a lot of that was due to him just being a little bit too slow on the ground. He has the technique to avoid the submission. His body won't react to it. Same thing with Frank Mir. I don't think he suffers those submission losses if it's Nogueira in his prime, honestly. Even though Verdum and Mir are both outstanding competitors, especially on the ground, I realize that it's possible, but I still think Nogueira in his prime would make life a lot more difficult than that. So it's just hard to trust Nogueira these days as well. So even on the ground, even though Struve, I think more times than not, should never really be capable of subbing a legend like Nogueira, I think it's possible now because Nogueira just can't move that well. He can't flow that well on the ground. So that's a concern for me. On the feet, I think, again, his chin is a little bit of a concern, and Struve, of course, has a significant reach advantage here. He's got a little bit underrated power to go along with that as well. But I do give, again, even standing, I give the edge a little bit more towards Nogueira. If you look, even back not too long ago in his fight against Verdum, I think Nogueira was doing really pretty well in the stand-up game. He was being effective with Verdum. It just, he lost it when he really got on the floor. So I think if Nogueira is able to keep this fight standing against Struve, I know that Struve is going to have, again, that huge advantage as far as reach goes. But I think Nogueira might be able to be successful and maybe land and find a path of victory there standing. But as far as matchup goes overall, I think that you do have to kind of give it to the younger man here, Struve. I think he's got a point to prove. He needs to bounce back from that not so great performance in his last fight. This is a winnable opponent these days in Nogueira, and it's going to be a pretty solid notch on his resume if he does get the win. So I think it's going to be a tough matchup. I could realistically see this fight playing out either way, but I'm going to lean a little bit more towards youth here and go with Struve. I think he does have some advantages in this fight, even though Nogueira is the better overall fighter, and I think it's probably going to be enough to get him the W here, either by finish or maybe on the scorecards as well. So my pick is going to be Struve, but again, another tricky one and not that confident.
Yeah, if this fight had taken place 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been no doubt about it. Nogueira would have absolutely destroyed Stefan Struve. But time is, Father Time is the enemy of us all, and Minotauro Nogueira has been on the receiving end of some serious problems with his age and wear and tear. His body is just breaking down. I mean, this is a guy that was known for his legendary chin, and he's been getting knocked out. He was known for his resilience. He's been getting submitted. He's known for incredible ground game, and he's just not able to pick up those wins on the canvas. So, man, it's been really, really tough for anybody that's been a huge, long-time supporter of Nogueira dating back to his Pride days. But Stefan Struve is definitely a flawed fighter. Struve comes in at nearly 7 feet tall. He's got the skyscraper nickname for a reason, but he has never been able to use that height and length to an advantage. He is not a quick striker. He doesn't use a jab well. He doesn't use kicks that well. So I don't think Nogueira has a ton to be concerned about on the feet. Struve does have some power. I mean, he's definitely scored some knockouts. So, I mean, that is the one thing. But again, Struve, man, he's just has never been an impressive striker. And the best thing that Struve's usually had going for him in his career has been his ground game. So against Nogueira, is Struve going to be able to get anything going? I don't know. Maybe because Nogueira's hips just aren't what they used to be. He's had multiple hip surgeries, and that is such an important part of the flexibility and your ways to move on the canvas to create those openings to explode and attack. And Nogueira has definitely not been a great attacker on the canvas in recent years, and he's actually been vulnerable there. So that is something you seriously have to consider. But again, Nogueira, I really think people are underestimating a little bit his boxing. He's still a dangerous fighter. I mean, the last time that a young guy came into Brazil and people had him as the favorite, it was Brandon Schaub, and Nogueira blasted him on the feet and then took him out with a knockout. So Stefan Struve could definitely be that guy because Struve has one of the worst chins in the heavyweight division. And Nogueira does have some pretty underrated boxing. I mean, Fabricio Verdum was not able to get much going against Nogueira on the feet. So you really have to take that in consideration. That's the current heavyweight champ, a guy that outstruck Cain Velasquez to win the title eventually by submission, but a guy that knocked out Mark Hunt on the feet, a guy that has really taken it leaps and bounds in his heavyweight career, and Nogueira was holding his own with him on the feet, if not getting the better of it. So Nogueira, if he can put the pressure on Struve, if he can back him up, if he is motivated and fueled by that Brazilian crowd, I can see him outworking Stefan Struve. I can see him getting a knockout. Struve, he's actually going to be coming into this fight finally filling out his frame. He's cutting weight for the first time, so that'll be interesting to see how he performs as he's getting a little bigger and stronger. But man, it's a little too little too late for Struve, in my opinion. He's had a lot of health issues. Every single one of his UFC losses has been by knockout. Granted, all against really legit guys in the heavyweight division. But Nogueira's still, a guy that you have to be a little bit concerned about. Yeah, he's 39 years old. Yeah, he's worn down. He's had a lot of injuries. His chin isn't great. He's slower. But it's not like Struve is a powerhouse. So I think very, very slightly, I'm going to lean towards the underdog here in Nogueira. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Struve comes in and lights him up. But Struve is coming off a long layoff where he came back and got knocked out in his last fight. So it's not like he's coming in here with any momentum whatsoever. And while he is the younger, fresher guy, that usually is a benefit because you haven't taken a lot of damage, and Struve has taken a ton of damage. So I think Nogueira is going to be able to hold his own. And if he can keep this standing and just pressure Struve, he could knock him out. So I'm going to slightly lean towards Nogueira here, although I am not confident about this whatsoever, just because of where both these guys are in their careers at this point. Now, Reed, what do the numbers tell us for this one?
Well, they completely back up a lot of the points that you guys are making. First of all, let's talk about the striking. The biggest thing is the damage that they've taken. They each have a chin rating that is way below the average, even for heavyweights. They've taken 14 knockdowns between them in their UFC careers, which is just staggering. And yet, offensively, they've only scored 6. Now, Struve has about roughly average knockout power. Nogueira above average knockout power, but then punch for punch, Nogueira's chin is actually worse than Struve. And so I think, a lot of that is just the recent knockouts he's been taking and the fact that he's going to be pushing 40 soon. So, anthropometrics, I'm leaning with Stefan Struve. He's a longer guy. He's younger. He's also finally, hopefully, gotten over this medical issue that has him cutting weight for the first time because he's actually able to work out at full speed. And he's got his heart at full capacity. But, I think the hands, the stylistic differences are interesting because consider Stefan Struve. He considers himself a kickboxer. He does throw a lot of leg kicks, somewhat reserved pace, but Nogueira is just a headhunter. He is a pure boxer. And if it's all about who lands a head strike first, it's probably going to be Nogueira. He has similar accuracy to Struve. He relies almost exclusively on head strikes, doesn't bother with body or leg kicks, and Struve has the worst defense. So he's allowing himself to get hit. And if they go toe-to-toe, obviously either one of them can knock each other out. But even though I'm leaning with Struve on the anthropometrics, stylistically, Nogueira is he's going to be using his hands and going after that finishing shot sooner. So I do think this stays on the feet, at least for the first few minutes, unless someone maybe gets hurt and they try to drag it down. And I think it just kind of cancels each other out on the ground. But I can't pick against Struve. I like the guy. I know the guy. And he does have advantages. And if we see him come in overcoming this medical issue, then he certainly should win this fight. But obviously that is an unknown. We have not seen him come back from that issue yet. And Nogueira is still dangerous even at this age. So, not picking this one way or the other. I am saying that, another fight, very unlikely to go to the cards. It's just hard to predict who's going to get that finish.
Now, these next two fights were added to the pay-per-view main card due to some fallout from the Hollywood card where fighters couldn't get visas. So we have the Ultimate Fighter Brazil finale bouts taking place. The first one is in the bantamweight division. We have Reginaldo Vieira, who is 13-3, taking on Delano Lopez, who is 19-1. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Up in Lopez, minus 300, the comeback on Vieira, 220. And right now it is Lopez hanging in there about the same, minus 320. The comeback on Vieira is plus 260. So not much movement here. A little bit of two-way action again, probably a little bit more parlay action coming in on Lopez, but nothing significant as of yet. So line seems to be holding steady. We should see a fairly competitive fight. I mean, these guys are definitely two solid guys at 135. Considering, tough Brazil, a lot of people I'm sure aren't going to respect. It is what it is with the Ultimate Fighter Latin America and the shows that we've seen on Fight Pass or whatnot as well, that sometimes the level of competition isn't really the greatest. But why I'm saying that is because these two guys are definitely solid at least. And I think there is a future, especially with Lopez, with the betting favorites here. I think he can definitely make an impact, especially if he drops down to his maybe more natural weight at 125. For both these guys, really, they both could compete at flyweight. And I think there's a good chance that they might after this fight as well. So getting into how they match up, though, again, both of them well-rounded. I'll start off with Lopez a little bit first. I think he's really, I mean, he went 3-0 on the show. He won 2 of his victories by submission, 1 by decision. Of course, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's a southpaw on the feet. Loves to throw his high kicks, especially left high kick. He loves to push forward, be aggressive. And as far as submission skill goes, I mean, he has very aggressive guillotine chokes. He, jumps on. If he's anywhere around your neck, he's the type of fighter that will just go for it, jump on you. Of course, that's leads to maybe getting put on his back if he doesn't complete the guillotine choke, of course, if somebody's able to escape. So that kind of gets him in some problems once in a while, but his takedown defense overall and his wrestling is actually pretty good. So he is, again, as I mentioned, a southpaw on the feet too, so that angle and the look that he's going to give on the feet is a little bit different. And I do love the fact that he pushes such a high pace and he's just a busy fighter. And I think that's what's going to have the biggest impact against a fighter like Vieira. Vieira is a pretty good fighter as well. He had a couple sub wins to go along with, on the show as well. So he has the ability to finish fights. I mean, that's kind of where he excels at the most, I think, as well, is on the ground. But the problem with him is that his wrestling is spotty at times. And I say that because he does have decent offensive wrestling, but at times he's a bit overly aggressive on the feet and he could get put on his back a little bit. And that's where he does tend to make a little bit more mistakes along the way. I think Lopez is put together a little bit more solid as far as making less mistakes as the fight goes on. But Vieira overall, he is a pretty solid fighter. He doesn't offer all that much on the feet, but he's still developing in that aspect of the game. He does like to use the lead jab and throws kicks effectively, especially the leg kicks. And he does have a decent little counter uppercut as well. So he can be dangerous, but he's just not very consistent with his striking. And then again, when he does get a little bit flowing with the striking, he gets a little bit over aggressive, and I think he can get put on his back. So I think that's what's going to happen here. I think the inconsistency of Vieira on the feet is going to lead to Lopez outscoring him on the feet as well. If they neutralize each other out as far as takedowns go, then it's going to obviously benefit Lopez by being the more active fighter. But I don't think that's going to happen either. I think Lopez is going to end up in top position along the way. Both these guys, again, are capable of finishing the fight by sub. But I do give the edge across the board. I think the submissions edge goes to Lopez. I think the striking edge goes to Lopez. I think the wrestling edge goes to Lopez. So clear cut across the board. We'll see a competitive fight. But I think it's Lopez's fight to win or lose. He is the better, more talented prospect of the two. He's a younger fighter as well. And I'm expecting actually some pretty good things from Lopez moving forward as well. So he is going to be your Ultimate Fighter bantamweight champion, I believe. So my official pick is going to be Lopez.
Yeah, I really think that Delano Lopez is probably the best prospect on this show. And going in there against Reginaldo Vieira, Vieira is not a bad fighter, but Lopez is just incredibly talented. I mean, this guy has done the time, put in the time, and picked up a lot of wins on the regional scene. He probably could have just gone straight to the UFC, but he wanted to earn it through the Ultimate Fighter, and he's done it so far. Vieira is a decent fighter, but man, he didn't even originally pass the first round of the bantamweight bracket, the round of 8, after fighting successfully to get onto the show. He lost to Matthias Nakalu, and he just happened to be lucky enough to step in for someone who was not able to continue on the show. So he ended up fighting, I believe, 4 times on the show. Once to get in the house, twice in the opening round of 8, and then he was also able to beat Bruno Correia. So I think Vieira is definitely gutsy, but Lopez is so talented. He is very quick on the feet, has good power, very explosive, and he can come in, hit you, and get out of the way. So that is very important in the bantamweight division, especially power, because not everybody has it. And what I really like about Lopez is he can follow up that power with some good wrestling and a great ground game. So this guy really is the complete package, in my opinion, and I expect Vieira to have a lot of trouble here. Vieira just doesn't quite match up to Lopez in regards to ground game, and especially on the feet. I think Lopez is going to be able to use significantly better footwork and movement and speed against Vieira. Vieira is a little bit taller, slightly longer, but especially because Lopez, I would expect after this fight, is going to drop down to the flyweight, where he's going to be making an impact. I expect him to be in the top 15 within a year after dropping down to the flyweight division. But at this point in bantamweight, Vieira is going to be a little bit bigger, but I just don't think that's going to be enough. The difference between bantamweight and flyweight is not super significant. So I expect Lopez to just run circles here around Vieira and probably pick up a finish victory, an impressive performance to make a statement in the lighter weight classes for the UFC. So I really do like Delano Lopez, so I'm going to pick him. Now moving up to the lightweight division, we have Galego Franca, who is 13-3, taking on Fernando Bruno, who is 16-2. Now, Nick, what's the MMA odds maker's perspective on this one?
I opened Franca minus 210, the comeback on Bruno plus 160, and right now over at 5 dimes, it is Franca minus 170, the comeback on Bruno plus 150. So 10-cent drop in the dog. There's a little bit more action coming in on Bruno. And some action starting to come back in a little bit on Franca as well. So line's going to probably hold steady around 2-1 or just under for Franca. And this is a great matchup. Again, two talented guys, honestly, that I think deserve a shot in the UFC. So I'm glad these guys made it to the final. Starting off with Bruno, I guess, first. I mean, honestly, one problem I have with Bruno is that he's kind of small for the weight class. For 155, the guy's 5'6", doesn't have long reach. He's kind of short, but he is powerful and he's got some skill to go along with it. So I do think he belongs at 145, and I'm sure we'll see him go to 145 probably after this finale, win or lose. It's just going to be a better fit for him if he can make that weight cut, of course. He does train at Nova União, so he trains with Brau, he trains with Aldo. He's got a great camp behind him. He's got a little bit of power on the feet, but he's not really, in my opinion, he's not really known for his striking. It's his ground game, it's his wrestling, it's his BJJ that comes into play when you're talking about Bruno. He is a southpaw on the feet, so obviously he's got that going for him. It could throw fighters off at times as well. And he is, like I said, very powerful for his frame, for being a short little guy. So he's definitely a good grappler. He went 3-0 on the show, 2 decisions, 1 sub win. And the guy is, again, a skilled fighter. So he's got an overall complete MMA game. He does like to control the distance and close, get inside and basically close to control the clinch a little bit, work inside, look for those takedowns. On the feet, he uses decent footwork and movement, but he's not as active as you'd like to see him in the striking game. His activity kind of bothers me a little bit because he tends to just slow down and not throw much and look to counter a little bit more. But for his size, he does manage to handle himself pretty good against bigger opponents. He struggled a little bit on the Ultimate Fighter, I think, with the size of his opponents a little bit. But again, he came through. He got the W. He still managed to control the fight. So you got to give him credit for that as well. His takedown defense and overall wrestling is okay. I mean, he can be put on his back. It's hard to hold him there, and he's got some decent BJJ, so he can be tricky at times to deal with on the ground. But Bruno is a very solid fighter, but again, more of your grappling-based fighter. Now, Franca, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Franca's actually more of a well-rounded fighter. I think he's very long for the division. He's on the other side of this. I mean, I think he's a big guy for lightweight, honestly. I mean, he's going to have a 78 reach advantage compared to Bruno's 71. So 7 inches of pure reach he's got going for him here. And again, I think he's a little bit more of a complete fighter because he's long and rangy on the feet. He uses his lead jab very well, so he stays long, and ends up following up his jab with some heavy strikes. He's got a really good clinch attack as well. His knee attack is even on point from there. He does look for takedowns often, and is basically more of a body lock takedown type of fighter, but at the same time, he is capable of hitting a double leg as well. So he's got a really good sub attack on the ground. And I really think what it comes down to here is the size of Franca is going to give Bruno some fits. On the feet, I think Bruno can be dangerous, but I think Franca is just that reach, the aggression, his ability to just push forward and control the tempo of the fight is going to probably come into play here. And I think that's going to give Bruno some fits. Now, Bruno's going to want to take this thing to the ground. Franca's takedown defense seems to be okay. It's needs to be tested a little bit here, though, as well. I think that's going to be Bruno's best path to victory. But I think even if Bruno does end up in top position, it's going to be hard to control Franca because he's so long. I think he's going to be able to scramble back up to his feet or even actually reverse position on the ground if he does end up on his back and end up on top. So Franca's a little bit more dangerous, I think, in all aspects of the game. He's got a balanced, basically striking attack with his submission game as well. And on the show, he also went 3-0, and he won all 3 of his fights by submission. So very dangerous. He's going to be longer, better fighter, I think, overall. He does belong at 155, whereas Bruno belongs at 145. So I think all signs are honestly pointing to Franca winning this bout. It should be competitive. It should be a good fight. Both of them, again, are deserving. But I really think Franca gets the job done here. I don't know if he's going to finish Bruno, but I think he at least wins on the scorecard. So my official pick is going to be Franca to win.
Franca is definitely the bigger, younger, longer fighter, and that is really important in MMA. Those are three of the most important statistics. But I think the most important statistic is wrestling. And Fernando Bruno, despite being undersized, being basically a featherweight fighting at the lightweight division, and being older and everything, he still does have that ability to take the fight to the ground, and his top control isn't half bad. He was able to kind of grind out fights after he was able to get that early submission, or the third round submission, to get into the house. And then he just ground out some fights. It was a little ugly, but he made it work. And he is a Nova União guy, so he can make a little bit of a leap in between the Ultimate Fighter and his appearance at UFC 190. His problem, of course, is he's 33, so how much more is he really going to add to his game in between fights? So Franca probably does have the higher ceiling, but Bruno might just be getting him at the right time. So even though he's the smaller guy, I just have a gut feeling that he's going to be able to get those takedowns and get Franca on his back. It won't be easy. It's probably not going to be the most entertaining of fights if Bruno does win it. But he does a couple things pretty impressively. I do think his striking's a bit underrated. He has a slightly underrated power. He's a southpaw. He's able to explode in there with a left hook. He dropped his opponent with his first punch to get into the house, but wasn't able to put him away, and then, of course, ended up having to win late. But I think the guy's got some talent. He's definitely going to be pretty good in the featherweight division for as long as he lasts. But this time around, Franca, it's not like he's a world beater. He looked great on the show, and he did have a lot of submissions, but I don't think he's going to submit Bruno. Bruno's a really talented grappler, and if he can't submit Bruno, I think Bruno just winds up in top position or on the inside position in the fence and possibly walks away with either a decision, or maybe he wears him down and picks it up late. But it's not going to be easy, but I'm going to go with Fernando Bruno here. Now moving up to the light heavyweight division for the co-main event of the evening, we have Mauricio Shogun Rua, who's 22-10, taking on Antonio Rogério Nogueira, who is 21-6. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
I opened Shogun minus 190, the comeback on Nogueira plus 150, and right now it's minus 190 plus 165. So line virtually staying the same. Line margins tightened at another spot where there's split opinions and people are taking two-way action here as well. What a fight. I mean, this is a rematch from back in the day, way back in Pride. So this is, I mean, for those guys that have been following the sport for a long, long time and are true fans, you're going to appreciate this rematch for sure. They had a classic battle back in Pride in 2005, I believe. So it was awesome. And I'm glad to see this happening again, even though different situation. I mean, both fighters are not the same because, again, you want to talk about fight years, about age. They're just not as quick as they used to be. They're just not the same fighters they used to be. But that being said, I do think that both fighters have improved overall. Mentally, I think they've improved overall their technique. Some areas, in fact, I believe Shogun has made vast improvements on his wrestling. He's been working very hard. So there's definitely more skill, I think, these days, and they're probably the best they've ever been. But again, it's another situation where I think their bodies just don't agree or let them down a little bit. Shogun is a little bit younger, 33 years old. Nogueira is actually 39 years old again. But in fight years, they're probably fairly similar, honestly. I mean, Shogun's been in so many wars, especially recently. And he is coming off back-to-back knockout losses. So that is a big concern. But then again, Nogueira just got plastered by Anthony Johnson in his last fight as well. And he's been the less active fighter of the two. But as far as how they match up, on the feet it's going to be close. Again, Nogueira, both brothers have very good boxing, knockout power on the feet, good fight IQs, good wrestling, obviously good jiu-jitsu as well. So Nogueira is a complete fighter, no doubt about it. He's a southpaw on the feet as well, which makes things a little bit interesting. And again, I think the biggest concern with Nogueira is honestly that chin. If it lets him down or not. And against Shogun, a guy that really has outstanding knockout power and is capable of finishing fights. I mean, I believe he's got 19 knockouts on his resume, and that's for a reason. I mean, the guy is a fairly accurate striker. He's got a ton of power. Again, pretty decent fight IQ overall. It's just with Shogun, I don't know. I mean, he is getting a little bit slower. His defense is letting him down a little bit more. I mean, more punches are getting through to him. And Nogueira, again, has decent boxing. So he's got to be careful in this fight, especially coming off back-to-back knockouts. And, I mean, his nose after the Henderson fight, wow, that was just shattered. It was disgusting. It was gone. So, I mean, give the guy a lot of credit. He rebounded and since, like I said, came back and got knocked out by OSP as well. But besides that, Shogun has shown some signs of decent ability, decent skill, and decent momentum, even though he's coming in losing 4 out of 5. So it's a little strange I'm saying that, but at the same time, most of the people out there that have been watching his fights probably understand what I'm saying. But that being said, in this matchup against Nogueira, I think you do have to slightly lean towards Shogun a little bit more in this spot. I think he's going to be a little bit more dangerous on the feet. He's got more of the pure knockout puncher's chance here against Nogueira. And again, I don't really trust Nogueira's chin as much. And I think it's going to probably end up staying upright because both these guys have decent takedowns and decent takedown defense as well. So we're going to see a classic battle. I think we're going to, if it does hit the scorecards, I'm not sure if it will because, again, both these guys are a little bit more vulnerable. If we do see the scorecards, I think it's going to be a really close competitive decision, a coin flip type of decision. But if not, if somebody is going to win this fight inside, I think it's probably going to be Shogun. So that's why I got to go with him. I think he just has maybe just a little bit more left in the tank, and he needs this win badly. So unfortunately for Nogueira, I don't think it's going to end up working out for him this time. But both legends, I have a tremendous amount of respect for both of them, and I am going to be interested in watching this fight.
Yeah, the original match between Shogun and Nogueira was incredible in Pride. One of the best fights in the history of Pride. Just a great back and forth battle that Shogun ended up getting the better end of. Now, this time around, both guys are in a bit of a free fall. Nogueira, just like his brother, has shown chin issues. I mean, he got absolutely destroyed by Anthony Johnson in his last fight. And the biggest issue for Nogueira is just staying healthy. The guy has not fought regularly whatsoever. He's fighting less than once a year. And even with the Anthony Johnson loss, he comes out, loses in 30 seconds, and that was a year ago. So, man, heading into this fight against Shogun, he is going to be super rusty. Shogun, while he hasn't been healthy, he's starting to deteriorate. At least he's fighting semi-regularly. And that's just not something you can say about Nogueira. The guy, I mean, just takes 2-year breaks at times. I mean, it's just terrible how inactive he's been. And it's just killing any momentum he was ever able to develop when he beat Rashad Evans in that pretty ugly decision. So, against a guy like Shogun, who definitely is on the decline, Nogueira is going to be in a bit of trouble here because, honestly, I think Shogun has the better wrestling of the two. Shogun has a little bit more power in terms of pure punching power on the feet. Nogueira still is a good boxer, but Nogueira is older. Neither guy has a great chin. I mean, Shogun definitely showed that he is vulnerable now to knockouts because he got knocked out by Dan Henderson after having him on the ropes in their fight, and then he got knocked out by OSP pretty quickly in his last fight. So neither guy has looked good whatsoever in their most recent performances, and man, it's just tough. It's sad to see it because these guys are such legends, but at this point in their careers, I gotta slightly think that Shogun has a little bit more in the tank. I mean, he's still hurting people in fights. He's still aggressive. I mean, he had Dan Henderson so close to finish multiple times, and then before that, he did smash James Tahuna, but he has been on a terrible skid, losing a lot of fights recently. Again, it was against elite fighters at least, but still. And in terms of Nogueira, I mean, the guy does have a very underrated jiu-jitsu game. I mean, his half-guard control is amazing, his sweeps, but I really don't expect to see a lot of ground. I think this fight's going to stay on the feet, and it's going to come down to who has more power, who has a better chin. I think technique-wise, Nogueira might have a little bit better technical boxing, but Shogun is so good with his big power shots and that explosion. I expect Shogun to connect with something against Nogueira and probably finish this fight. So anything could happen here. Nogueira could clip Shogun, but neither guy is great at this point. But I'm slightly leaning Shogun to pull this one off, and I think he clips Nogueira at some point and probably puts him out. So my pick for this fight is Mauricio Shogun Rua. Now, Reed, what do the numbers tell us for this one?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's another one of these very close call type fights between two legends or guys that have been around a while anyway. And yet this one I feel a little bit more comfortable in actually picking a side here and going with Shogun. His offensive striking is definitely more dangerous. He is much more accurate with both hands, his jab as well, and he has a lot of knockdowns. His knockdown rate is very high, 9 career knockdowns in the UFC. Defensively, he's also vulnerable. He's eaten some H-bombs, but hard to fault him on that. His defense, interestingly, is a little bit worse than Nogueira's, but Nogueira offensively just is not a threat. Is not as much of a threat as Shogun. He has poor accuracy, not a lot of knockdown power. He's just a little bit more evasive. So on the feet, definitely got to lean with Shogun. He's also the much younger guy again. And on the ground, Nogueira just simply does not attempt many takedowns. And if he's not going for them, then the fact that Shogun has bad takedown defense doesn't really play in. So if anyone, it's going to be Shogun that actually initiates taking this to the ground. His offensive success rate is okay. Nogueira's takedown defense is pretty good. So honestly, the ingredients are such that we probably shouldn't see this go to the ground. And if it stays standing, then yeah, you got to lean with Shogun, knowing that he is also vulnerable. Another fight that if they just go toe to toe, someone's going to get knocked out. But I got to lean with Shogun here.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Reed. Moving on to the main event in the evening, we have a women's bantamweight title fight between champion Ronda Rousey, who is 11-0, and challenger Betch Correia, who is 9-0. Now, Nick, where did you open this fight, and how has the public shifted things so far?
I opened Rousey minus 1,500, the comeback on Correia at plus 700. And right now it's Rousey minus 1,700, the comeback on Correia is plus 1,100. Believe it or not, the sportbook action is fairly even because there is a lot of dog takers straight at this price. But of course, people are trying to tie Rousey to parlay, even though it doesn't really seem to matter at that price as well. And there'll be some straight takers because a lot of people believe that this is a fight that is almost as sure as you can get as far as if there's a lock. I hate to use that term or word, but man, I'll tell you what, if Correia is the one to beat Rousey, then it would be one of the biggest upsets ever in the history of MMA for sure. Because unfortunately, even though, again, you got to respect all fighters, I think Correia's skill set, she's not great anywhere. She's got a little bit of power for sure. She's got good cardio. She's okay in all areas. She's got decent wrestling. She works, trains with good camp and the Pitbull brothers. I understand that as well. So much respect to her, but as far as even the striking game, I think Rousey is actually a little bit more dangerous and more capable of actually finishing opponents. I mean, she's kind of proven that recently. And then on the ground, we can't even compare the two. So I won't waste a lot of time here. I mean, it is what it is. I think the matchup, honestly, Correia, I think could have really worked, maybe won a couple more fights before she got this title shot. But the storyline is what mattered with, of course, Correia beating Baszler and beating Duke. The 4 horsewomen type of thing that they got going on. So I understand the UFC's angle in putting Correia there. The fight is in Brazil. So I'm sure it'll do decent, especially anything considering Rousey is actually a lot of traffic, a lot of hits, a lot of views. I'm sure a lot of pay-per-view buys as well. So I understand it. But it's really a squash match. I mean, Rousey is going to get this fight to the floor at one point. And once she does, Correia is not going to be able to take it and she's going to get submitted. So we'll cut it there, and no surprise to most, but Rousey is my official pick.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste everybody's time here. I mean, Ronda Rousey is one of the best fighters, at least comparatively to the rest of her division, ever. She is so much better than every other girl in the division. I mean, just look what happened this last weekend. Miesha Tate just became the number 1 contender again, and this is somebody that Ronda has finished twice decisively. And she's just so far ahead of everyone else on the division. It's scary, and it's growing. I mean, Kat Zingano, undefeated, comes into that fight. People are like, maybe, this could be the one that could potentially give Ronda the fight that she needed, and Ronda just murders her in 14 seconds. So there's just no one out there that can challenge Ronda Rousey at this point. Correia is a decent striker. She pushes a decent pace. She has okay conditioning. But man, she is just not athletic enough. She is not strong enough. She is not quick enough. She is definitely a little plodding. Ronda's going to outstrike her if she wants to. And because of some of the comments Correia's made in the pre-fight hype, Ronda is angry. Ronda wants to punish this girl. So honestly, the only thing that I'm interested in this fight is how Ronda beats her, because she could finish her really quickly if she wanted to, or she can punish her. She can make her suffer. Like, that's how good Ronda is. She can choose how she wants to beat people. And it's just a matter of how Ronda wants to beat Correia. She can submit her if she wants. She can knock her out if she wants. She can throw her around the ring and embarrass her. And I wouldn't be surprised by any of this stuff. Maybe Ronda just wants a quick win so she can go beat Misha again and by the end of the year and then go film a movie. I mean, it just all depends on what Ronda wants to do at this point, because she is so much better than everyone else that it is terrifying. So Ronda Rousey, hands down, I'm picking her. I mean, Correia stands almost zero chance. It would be the biggest upset, in my opinion, of all time, bigger than Sarah, GSP, any of that stuff, if Correia was able to win. So my pick is Ronda Rousey. Now, Reed, what do the numbers tell us for this one?
Yep, full agreement here. So there's a lot more detail on Ronda Rousey's submission game on the MMA Oddsbreaker website. We've got a couple articles up that are going to look at this in detail. Her submission game really is that good, and she wastes no time going for takedowns. She is very good at them. She gets people down, and then the submissions come fast and furious. She converts them with 3 times the normal success rate for submissions in the UFC. And in terms of just the speed at which she's submitting opponents, it's the highest in UFC history by a factor of 2. So no one's even close to Ronda Rousey in terms of how fast and easily she submits people. On the feet, Correia, yeah, she looks pretty good. She beat up Shayna Baszler, looked aggressive, was landing a lot of strikes. That's kind of inflated her stats a little bit, because Ronda Rousey, her stats are actually not that bad, with the exception of the fact that she's taken some punches, she's gotten hit. But offensively, she's actually pretty good and improving. So, her metrics are probably more recently better. So it's a question of how long does Ronda Rousey engage, keep it at a distance. But once she closes it, she will get the takedown, and she will get a finish on the mat one way or the other.
So that'll do it for our full event breakdown for UFC 190. Part 2 of the Premium Oddscast featuring our premium bets will be out this Friday night following the weigh-ins, so stay tuned for that if you're an MMA Oddsbreaker Premium member. If you'd like to become a premium member, just go to MMAOddsbreaker.com and you can sign up in the top right corner of our homepage. If we have a free play to give out, make sure to follow @MMAOB Premium on Twitter, because that's where we'll post them first. We can also notify you of our free bets via email if you prefer that method. Just send an email to picks@MMAOddsbreaker.com and we'll add you to our free bet mailing list. Special thanks to our sponsors, 5 Dimes and Countermove. Good luck, everyone, and hopefully the betting gods are on your side this weekend.